Common problem. You're in Las Vegas and you win big at the craps table. You've got a huge wad of cash burning a hole in your pocket. And if you're like me, you're thinking, ooh, I could go buy some yarn with this money. But where do I go? I mean, I'm in Las Vegas. Do they even knit here? I mean, it's hot. It's a desert. Well, not to worry. I've got you. Stay tuned and I'll solve your problem. Hi, I'm Melanie and you're watching Yarn Journeys. I'm a knitter, a spinner, and a sometimes sewist, and I live in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. If you are a returning viewer to Yarn Journeys, welcome back. And if you are new here, well, I am so glad you found me. Here's what's up for today. We're gonna go yarn shopping in Las Vegas. Yes, we are. There are two wonderful yarn stores in the city, and I got to visit them when my husband and I were stopping by on our trip to Death Valley National Park. The closest airport to Death Valley National Park is actually Las Vegas, so we were thinking, why not stop by and explore the crazy Sin City that is Las Vegas, Nevada? Along the way, I will share with you some progress on my projects and some acquisitions. And then at the end, I will share with you the beauty and the wonder that is Death Valley National Park. In truth, I'm not really a gambler. Before this trip, I'd only been to Las Vegas twice before because of work, and that was, a conference and a meeting that happened to be taking place in Las Vegas. It is quite something to see. And since my husband and I were flying into Las Vegas on our way to Death Valley, and my husband had never been there before to Las Vegas, I figured, why not spend a couple nights just to see the spectacle, take it in, walk along the strip, see the big, crazy casinos, the Bellagio fountains, and the ostentation of Caesar's Palace. And since we were spending a couple nights there, it seemed like, hey, why not check out the knitting shops that are in Las Vegas? And there are some. And as I came to learn when I was chatting with the knitters, is that actually there's lots of reasons to wear your knits in Las Vegas. First of all, in the summer when it is super hot, oftentimes the buildings and places are really quite cold with blowing air conditioning. So shawls can come quite in handy, as well as cardigans. A thick Icelandic pullover might not get much wear unless you're going skiing in the nearby mountains. So first up is Golden Needle Arts. It's a short 15-minute drive away from the Strip, the part of Las Vegas where all the big casinos are. When I first arrived, I wasn't 100% sure that I'd gotten to the right place because due to an unfortunate incident, the big window in front that had the sign and the logo for the shop was boarded up. I know that it has since been fixed. But in any case, I was like, wait, am I in the right place? And the door was closed and there was a little sign that had the hours on there. And I backed up from the door and I walked around, and then I saw a car that had a license plate on it that said something like "Love to Knit" in, how license plate can replace letters and so forth. So I was like, okay, knitters are in the vicinity. So I went up to the door and I slowly opened it and poked my head in, and wouldn't you know, the place was full of knitters knitting. It was actually during a weekly knitting meetup of their regular shopgoers, and the place was chock full of beautiful, beautiful yarn. So it almost felt like I was at a yarn speakeasy. Like it was kind of a fun experience. They have a large collection of beautiful yarn to knit with here. I noted gorgeous fingering from Ba yarn, which is out of Southern California. They also had Louisa Harding, Malabrigo, Mirasol, Queensland collection, and it's actually split up into a number of different rooms, so you can kind of go on a little journey and see all the gorgeous fibery goodness there. I learned a couple interesting things at Golden Needle Arts, such as the fact that there does seem to be a certain amount of what I'll call regionalness to what yarn shops sell and provide, which does make sense. The owner of the yarn shop, who was super lovely and so generous with her time, explained to me that they were a Jody Long flagship store with lots of Jody Long wool. And I'm like, who's Jody Long? And I felt a little embarrassed about that because it seemed like it should be a brand I should know. But in fact, when I went back and was chatting with knitters in my library knitting group, I asked them, like, have you heard of Jody Long wool? Is it just me? And they're like, nope, never heard of it before. And so I'm thinking that this must be a West Coast favored brand. As it turns out, Jody Long is British and he sells yarn all over the world. So I'm not sure why there might be those differences, but yeah, so it exists. But he does put out some beautiful, gorgeous wool. And I, in fact, fell in love with this gorgeous silk and merino skeins that had this lovely sheen and softness to them. Golden Needle Arts also has an interesting story as to how it became a knitting shop. The owner originally opened up Golden Needle Arts mainly as a needlepoint store, but a group of knitting friends who happened to be there when I arrived were looking for a place to knit and enjoy, being a knitting community. And one of them knew about this needlepoint shop and said, hey, we're knitters in the area. You really should start stocking knitting yarns and we will help you get going and work with you to set up your store as a place not only for needlepoint, but also for yarn for knitters and crocheters. And that's what happened. And it was such a warm place to go shopping for yarn and such a sense of community. And what I was so impressed with was how lovely it was for this community of knitters to find a home and continue their sharing the joy that they find in knitting together. So, of course, I had to take away a souvenir of my visit to Golden Needle Arts, and I purchased this lovely Mirasol Inca in the color Andalusite is what it says. And it is, well, just look at the shine on that. It is a combination of viscose and alpaca, and it is so soft and shiny. It is lace weight, so I am thinking that it could possibly stand in for a silk and mohair, but actually I think I'd like to make a really silky shawl of my own with it, and I'm wondering if it would actually do well in another Horai scarf. This was the scarf I made with mohair silk from the Knot House, and I just love this repeatable lace pattern, and I think that this lovely viscose and alpaca yarn from Marisol would do just as well. What do you think? So there's an idea for that one. So I also visited Sin City Knits, which is a little bit further away from all the casinos in the other direction from Gold Needle Arts, but it's pretty easy to get to. It's right off the freeway. And it was fun to see all the play on words they have with Las Vegas applied to knitting. In fact, the owner of the store has her own hand-dyed yarn line that she calls Wild Aces. They had a beautiful selection of knitting and crochet yarns at Sin City Knits. So I saw Lin du Nord, there's also Lana Grossa from Italy. There was some very interesting looking cotton yarns from a brand called Pavlova. And there's also a large collection of Ella Ray. So indeed, one could definitely drop by and drop a big heap of cash at Sin City Knits if you'd been lucky at craps. You know, I've only played craps once on my first trip to Vegas over 20 years ago, and I was sort of goaded by friends into trying it, and as it turned out, I actually won $300. But I was much younger then and not quite the knitter, so instead of buying yarn, I bought shoes. So there you go. Sin City Knits is a lovely, friendly place, lots of tables. They also have a lot of events, classes, and foster community there as well. Now for me, I really enjoy when going to a yarn store to walk away with something that is really special and unique. So I bought a skein of Wild Aces yarn. This is fingering merino nylon sock yarn. And I just love this sort of moody, speckled with blues and pinks and purples yarn. This is right up my jam, and I'm always happy to make socks, but I think it would also look really nice in a shawl perhaps. I have no doubt I will find a use for this. By the way, if you are enjoying this episode of Yarn Journeys, please do hit that like button. It really will help people just like yourself find the show and enjoy the content. Thank you so much. In this episode, I only have one finished object to share, and that is this completed skein of Shetland yarn from fiber I got at last year's Sheep and Wool Festival in Maryland, and the fiber came from Angel Locks Fiber Works. So I spun this on my trusty Ladybug. And I did it with long draw, and I'm really excited about how consistent I am getting with my woolen spun. This is a nice, it's a nice, I'd say, fingering to sport weight. And I just love the grays, and it's actually black that come, the black to the grays to this lovely, almost plum color. Now, sheep and wool, Maryland sheep and wool is coming up, so it's really tempting to get some more fiber. But I am really pleased with how this came out of its bath. And I think this would look lovely as some color work, perhaps in a sweater or in a shawl. Anywho, spinning continues, and I'm really enjoying getting a groove back on my spinning. In fact, what I am wearing is my Weekender sweater, the Weekender being a pattern by Andrea Mowry, and I made this with some Targhee fiber that I spun up in Tour de Fleece the summer of 2022. So spinning continues, and it really is fun. If you're thinking about getting into spinning, do it. So on to works in progress. I am still working on my glittering Snowscape shawl, that pattern by Stephen West. It was his hybrid knit along. Let's see if you can see, I am, I'd say 3/4 of the way. I'm holding it upside down. I'm 3/4 of the way through the border. So I've got this much left to go. It is taking me forever, but I will finish it. And I am working on it bit by bit every day. Because I'm really excited about wearing it when it's finished. I think it is going to be really beautiful. I don't know, it's so big. The other thing is that I am really worried that if I put this down to take a break on it, I might not ever pick it up again. So every day I do a little bit, and someday it will be done and you will be sure to know about it. In my last episode of Yarn Journeys, I talked about how I was going to be knitting Melanie Berg's A Study in Pink with some beautiful yarn that I picked up at Vogue Knitting Live, this flax fingering that it's just phenomenal. It's from the Camellia Fiber Co. And I did. I cast it on. I got all the way through the yoke, almost all the way through the yoke, I should say. And then I looked at it and I thought, this doesn't look right. And I realized that I had skipped a full repeat of the lace pattern. Instead of doing 2.5 full repeats of the lace pattern, so it should have been 36 rows. I only did 18 of the rows of the lace. And so my yoke was not going to be the right size. But then I also took a look at the short rows, and well, I really hadn't done the best job on them. And I knew it at the time when I was knitting them, but I was knitting it on the plane, and I just was, just forging ahead. Oh, that doesn't look great. No one will notice. But in truth, it was the kind of thing that would bother me. So I just took the opportunity to frog it, because anyway I was going to try and fix it. If I ripped back to the the lace pattern so that I could add on another 12 rows, well, that would still leave the yicky looking short row turns, and so I might as well just frog the whole thing. It's fine, it's fine. I enjoyed the knitting while I was doing it. So I took the yarn and I reconditioned it. I gave it a bath. You can tell it doesn't look quite the same as the flax fingering in the original untouched skein. But I don't actually think that's going to be a problem. I have another full skein of this, but also, does this happen to you when you're knitting with things with alpaca? I call it the alpaca donut. That as you're knitting, some of the fibers slide off the yarn, and it kind of forms a little donut around the yarn that is your working yarn. And sometimes I had to take a scissors and cut off the donut because it was really starting to annoy me. So my guess is that my reconditioned yarn is going to be exactly the same as this fresh yarn. It's just that while I was knitting, I kind of rubbed off that little bit of fuzz that exists on the yarn in the donut. I have no idea if I'm making any sense. Let me know if this is something you're experiencing as well. Anybody else make alpaca donuts with their yarn? Anyway, I do totally intend to knit with this yarn in the future, perhaps the Melanie Berg pattern. I really like it, and I do want a summer tea with this gorgeous yarn. I also have two other major learnings from this frogged project. One, don't knit two big fingering weight projects at the same time. So I was working on the glittering Snowscape shawl, which is fingering weight yarn, and I was knitting with this stuff, which was fingering weight yarn. And I think that there's just this sense of I'm knitting and knitting and knitting, and I'm not really making a ton of progress. And so as a result, I began to perhaps rush with both projects. So I think it's good to have, also, I think it's also good for your hands ergonomically to, if you're going to have two projects going and one of them is fingering, have the other one be a bigger weight, worsted weight, DK weight, something sort of fluffier and something that also might knit up a little faster. The other thing is that I need to learn to knit faster. I am an English knitter, I am a thrower. I don't quite use, I'm not a slow wrapper. I think I kind of go pretty fast for a thrower, but I need to learn to flick. So I am looking at resources on how to knit faster. Now, a number of people will say that continental knitting is faster, and perhaps I should learn to knit continental. I am looking at that, but I think I would like more fingering weight projects in my future. Heavyweight pullovers, in the Washington area heat, they just don't, I don't wear them for all that many months of the year. So it would be nice to have some fingering weight cardigans, some more fingering weight sort of t-shirty things that I can work on. But I think, I think I would just like to be able to feel confident that I'm not going to spend 6 months knitting with fingering weight on, when I can knit much faster with things that are, well, a little thicker. Have you ever tried to knit faster? What resources were helpful to you? I mean, to a certain extent, I just enjoy knitting, and whether I'm going fast or slow, really, who cares? I just wonder, how are people knitting all those beautiful fingering weight color work and shawls and things and t-shirts that you see on Ravelry, and they just seem to be busting through them, because that hasn't been my experience. So what do you think? Are you trying to knit faster? Perhaps we can learn together. All right. My next work in progress is another hand-spun project. This is what I have done so far of the Inclinations shawl, the Inclinations shawl being by Andrea Mowry, and this is knit with my hand spun. For several months of last year, I was working through some mohair mix fiber that I'd gotten from Avalon Springs Farm and one batch of fiber from Hedgehog Fibers. And I finally am casting it on, and it is squishy and fun. And I just love how these colors are working. I'll show you the skeins. So, this is the purple blue. I hope the camera is going to pick up the variegation that is in this yarn. This beautiful yellow, speckled, and so forth. This was actually from Hedgehog Fibers, and it is a combination of mohair and Blueface Leicester. As we move on in the shawl, I'll also be adding in this lovely peachy color and this more sort of magenta-y pink color. There's this lovely greeny color with some blues and purples. And then this is this gold color. I think it was called Rumpelstiltskin because there's gold Angelina in it. Yeah, you can pick up the sparkle there, I think. There you go. Anywho, you can see from the way the colors are coming together, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I am just already just in love with how it's coming together so far. So super fun knitting and a great antidote to the frustration I'd been having with the study in pink sweater from Melanie Berg and all the other fingering weight fun I was having. So those are my project updates. Now I'd love to show you the beautiful scenery we encountered in Death Valley and a little bit of Las Vegas too. As soon as you land, you know you're in Vegas because you see all these slot machines in the terminal. And in Nevada, in all the grocery stores and even convenience stores, there's slot machines. But Las Vegas really looks its glitzy best at night with all the lights going. It really is something else. But the real attraction for us was Death Valley National Park. If you do go to Death Valley, it is a necessity to have a car because distance between attractions are really far. The stark beauty of this desert landscape is astounding. We specifically came to Death Valley in early March because Badwater Basin had filled with water for the first time in a couple decades because of recent heavy rains. Badwater Basin, which is below sea level, is usually a desolate salt flat. From the top of Dante's View, a peak that is, I think, 6,000 feet above Badwater Basin, you could really take in the immensity of Death Valley's landscape. The artist's palette features these beautiful hills where natural oxides give color to the mountainside. Death Valley also has these amazing sand dunes, which we never got tired of playing in. This place is so amazing. If you didn't know any better, you'd think you were in the Sahara or in Morocco or someplace like that. And these mountains with the clouds, it is really, really gorgeous here. Hello. We are here in Death Valley National Park at the Mesquite Sand Dunes. I found a little bush to sit by while my husband does some photography. I'm about to perhaps take out my knitting, but it is quite beautiful here, as I'm sure you will see. Well, hello. I realize my face is completely in shadow, but I need to be wearing a hat because I'm here sitting on the top of a sand dune in Death Valley. We are at the Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes. My husband is getting his photography thing on, and as it happens, I have, shall I say, taken one of his cameras and started to fiddle with a little photography myself. But I don't have the enormous appetite for that he does, so I figured, why not take in the scenery and do a little knitting. You probably can't see this, but this is my Turkish cast on for the toe of the second everyday sock, the DRK everyday sock. So this is the other sock. So I'm on the second sock. Socks are the best hiking project, or so I found. We've been wandering around in the desert for about 2 hours today, but it is gorgeous and it's very silent. Every once in a while there's a little bit of a wind. Earlier when we were out here, there were fighter jets, like big time fighter jets, I guess, doing practice dogfights in the sky and making all these sonic booms, and they were really quite loud. So I'm glad they've stopped because it would be quite the background noise. Anyway, I am going to keep going on my sock and try not to get too sunbaked. I've got plenty of water, and every once, and I'm wearing sunscreen and I'm wearing long sleeves, so sun protection is fully on. So stay tuned. The cracked, dried mud made beautiful patterns, and these are roadrunner tracks. Beep, beep. The sand dunes really put on a show at sunset, with the mountains lit up by the beautiful light, and then the fireworks really went off. We took a hike through Mosaic Canyon to see all the amazing rock formations in this fun slot canyon. Another gorgeous natural spot near Las Vegas is the Valley of Fire, which was a very rewarding day trip. One of its most famous attractions is this fire swirl, as it's called. We had a dramatic sky because rain was on its way. We felt so lucky to be there. Well, that is all I have for you for today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And who knows where I will be heading to next. Be sure to subscribe so that you will find out in upcoming episodes of Yarn Journeys. Thank you so much.